Hi, welcome to this teachlet on taking Cornell Notes in the Language Arts classroom. I know that there's been lots of questions over what am I supposed to take notes over? Do I take notes over everything? How many do I have to take? And so I decided to create this little teachlet to just kind of go over the basics and what my requirements are going to be when it comes to Cornell Notes in the Language Arts classroom. So the essential question on this teachlet is, what am I expected to do with Cornell Notes in Language Arts? Your requirements is that you will be required to take Cornell Notes once a week, and I will post a lesson modification on one of your lessons each week that I would like for you to take notes over. So what you'll do is you're going to look for that little eraser with the chalk on your lesson in your planner, and one of those each week will indicate what I want you to take Cornell Notes over. And in that lesson modification, I'm going to tell you specifically in what lesson you are to take the notes on, and I will give you the topic and the essential question. That way the top heading part will be given to you and you're really focusing on the meat of the note taking. You may write or type your Cornell notes. I will make sure that in our message board in Language Arts under your class that you have an option to either print them or to type them in. I'll keep those documents always posted so you can always pull them down. I would recommend that you save them to your computer, that way it's easy to find. Whether you type or write them, I do ask that each week you upload them to your Language Arts Google Drive folder for me to grade. This way it's all kept in one place and I'm not trying to look at lots of emails and trying to decide which emails to look at and trying to remember to save them. If they all go into your Google Drive folder, that's easy for me to pull up and to look at and to grade. How to take the notes. This is what a Cornell note pieces of paper to look like. If you look at the top, it's the topic and objective that I will give you, and then it comes the name, class period, and date. Make sure you always put your name on your paper. For class, you can just put like 7th grade language arts, 6th grade language arts, 8th grade language arts. You don't have to worry about a class period. And then the date, whatever date it was that you took those notes. So like today is September 9th. So on my notes, I would put the date at September 9th, 2013. And then I will also provide for you the essential question, and you will put that right below the topic and your name, class period, and date. And then you'll notice in the middle is your notes and questions. And then at the bottom is a place for a summary. If for some reason you need more than one page, which may be the case, I know for a lot of times I write kind of big on those lines and I like to skip spaces and to make my notes easy to read. And so I might use 2 pieces of Cornell note paper. But for the summary, I'm only going to do one summary and I will write it at the end of wherever my notes come to a finish. Let's practice taking Cornell notes, what that means. Okay, let's suppose I was having a reading on previewing. I noticed that the first page it has learn it says what is it, has previewing in boldface and highlighted in yellow. To me, that's going to register for me that may be something important to write down. Other things I may look for on this page are things that are bulleted, where it says bullet and then has pre means before, it has it in quotation marks. That may be things I look for. Also, while I read, I'm going to look for things that are constantly being repeated and talked about over and over. And those are things that I may include in my notes. Again, I see more stuff in boldface. I also see things that are bulleted. Anytime I see something that's bulleted, boldface, underlined, highlighted, that's going to indicate to me that that might be something important. But I do want to read the entire page to make sure I am on the right track of that. Okay, this is how my heading may look for that page. My topic is previewing. I have my name as Miss Lee, class is Language Arts, and date is September 9th. And my essential question would be, how can previewing a text make me a better reader? So this would be that top heading part. And then I'm going to move down to the body. Here are things to consider when I'm writing the body. When I'm using the right hand side of my notes, here are things that I want to consider before I write them down. I want to make sure I use my own words. I want to be selective. I don't want to have to rewrite the entire text that I read, because if I'm rewriting the entire text, I'm I'm wasting time. I'm spending too much time. I want to really narrow it down. And the things I want to narrow it down to are those main ideas and details. What are the most important things that the author was trying to tell me? And what were those supporting details to support it? We've talked about in live lessons about extra information. I don't necessarily want to include that extra information in my notes because I know the author just gave that to me just for further entertainment purposes or just for me just to know, but it doesn't really pertain to the text. So I want to stick to what are the main ideas of the reading and what are the best details to support that. As I'm taking notes, I want to do things like indent, kind of like when you're writing a paragraph where you scoot in some and you don't write at the very edge of the line. I want to indent, especially when I'm talking about a new concept. I want to skip lines between main ideas. If I go back to that previewing page, each time I start a new chunk, it may be the headings or the subheadings that indicate another chunk of material. I want to skip a line between those. That way I know to separate that. I may use things like a bullet or numbers or some kind of visual cue to remind me, okay, I changed from this idea to the next idea. Also, abbreviations are perfect. Instead of writing a full word out, like here on skip lines between main ideas, I have B/W. That's an abbreviation for between. So abbreviations are great. You want to use abbreviations that you will know that you will remember, but it doesn't have to be a universal abbreviation. Again, these notes are for your benefit, for you to study, and so whatever way helps you best, that's the way you want to write. You don't want to use an abbreviation you're not sure what it means and then come back to it and be like, what is that? I don't remember what that was. Make sure you use abbreviations that you're familiar with, that you'll remember, and that will help you not have to write as much. Notes are those times where in language arts, they don't have to be a complete sentence on the right hand side. Again, it can be that paraphrase. It can be something really short, just a fragment. Don't worry about making complete sentences on the right hand side. On the left-hand side, this is where you're going to write questions. You're going to write questions on the left side. You're going to attempt, as we get into this class and get more in, to try and write higher level questions. And we'll have a live lesson on what are higher level questions. But for right now, you just want to write questions. And your questions want to be based on what you wrote on the right-hand side. And I'm going to show you an example in just a minute of what that means. And however many main ideas you have in your notes, that's basically how many questions that you want to have. And then at the bottom is your summary. You're going to write a summary at the end of your notes. And your summary is going to include what was your notes about. Going back to that essential question. Can you answer the essential question? Your essential question should be a part of your summary, the answer to that essential question. Here's an example. Going back to that previewing page slide, these are the notes that I took. If you notice on the right hand side, I use bullets to represent my main ideas. I have 3 main idea points. I have previewing as looking over a text before you actually read. Poetry, preview a poem, maybe looking at the way it's shaped, the length, and the title. And then my third main idea is previewing, could be reading the first few lines. Those are my 3 main ideas. Under each one, I might have some supporting details, and those supporting details have the little squiggly line to represent the supporting details. So if you notice under the first main idea bullet, I have 4 supporting details. In the second one, I only have really 1 supporting detail. And then in the third one, I have 1 that's kind of a summary of all those supporting details. So these are my notes that I took over those pages of previewing a text. And then if you look on my left hand side, I have 3 questions. And you'll notice those 3 questions are matched up with the main ideas in my notes. I have a question for the first main idea. I say, explain how you would preview a text, and what that question, I should be able to answer that question based on the notes that I took on the right hand side. And then the second one, I have how can previewing a poem differ from previewing a nonfiction text? Again, I should be able to answer that question based on the notes that I took on the right hand side. That's how I'm coming up with my question. I'm reading what I wrote on the right hand side, and I'm asking myself, what would be a question that could be answered based on my notes? And then the third one I have is, why would it be important to read the title of what you are going to read first? And again, It allows me to take those notes and then those questions. And these questions, essentially what they're supposed to do is give you a guide to study for before a test. If I were to say we're going to have a test on previewing and the importance of previewing, then you could pull out these notes and be able to study over them and what that meant. And then at the bottom I have my summary. I say, and again, my summary is going to include what my notes were about and going back to that essential question. How can previewing a text make me a better reader? And it says previewing what I read can make me a better reader because it helps me to focus before I ever start reading. I can preview by reading the title, looking at pictures, captions, graphs, and maps. I can make predictions on thinking about what I'm going to read next. I can even read the first few lines of the paragraph. Previewing poetry would be a little different than other texts because with a poem I would look at the length of the poem, the shape, and maybe even the ending words. And that would be my summary. And so the your Cornell notes, you want to make them to where they're going to help benefit you the most. There's going to be some stuff that we learn at the beginning of the year that we touch on, and then we may not look back at again until right before we take our state test, our STAR test. And these could be notes that you pull back out and be able to go back over to make sure you remember. Also, before a big unit test, these may be notes that you pull out and go back over to make sure that you remembered what we did earlier on in that unit before we took that unit test or semester exams and so forth. So a quick review. You'll be required to take Cornell Notes once a week. I'm going to post the lesson modification to your lesson on which ones I would like you to take notes over. In the lesson modification, I'm going to tell you specifically what lesson within that lesson I want you to take notes on. I'm also going to give you the topic and the essential question for your notes. You may write or type your Cornell Notes. Whichever way you do it, you'll need to upload it to your Language Arts Google Drive folder for me to grade. On your right-hand side of your notes, you're going to write your own words. You're going to paraphrase. You're going to make sure you include the main ideas and the important details in the text. You're going to indent and skip space, underline, highlight to bring forth the important stuff to help keep your notes nice and neat and easy to read. You're going to use bullets and symbols to help mark different spots, different main ideas, details, so forth. On the left-hand side, you're going to write your questions for each section of your notes. And then at the bottom, you're going to write your summary, and your summary should include the answer to your essential question. If you have any further questions, please email me through webmail, or you can call or text me, and I would be happy to go over with you more on Cornell Notes. Thank you.